This is the Tesla 1 month overview reading for the month of February 2024. It's currently December 26, 2023, 9:23 p.m. Eastern Time. Tesla at the time of this reading is currently $256.61. That's USD. And the shuffle video that we're about to play for you was created on December 5th, 2023 at 3:14 p.m. Eastern Time, or 3:10 Eastern Time. That's this video down here in the corner. So the overall theme and behavior for February, we have an attempt to establish support. Usually when you see the power card, it's either there's an important support that you like rotate sideways along, or it's like a failed attempt and you break down through it. The Prince of Wands indicates a lot of price change and or volatility. Probably both. And then behavior around the highest high or highs for the month. Looks like we're bound by the upper end of a range here. Behavior around the lowest low or lows for the month. I'm advised to be cautious. There's multiple false bottoms or some sort of tricky chart behavior near the bottoms that would like make you you're likely to do the wrong thing like impulsively based on that chart behavior. So it's important to be careful around those lows. Before we go any further, I want to make sure everybody's aware the whole purpose of the channel is to transmute some of the competitive energy of the stock market into goodwill. And we do that here on the resources tab of our website, Terra for Traders, where we follow the rule of karma for the channel. It's the unwritten agreement between the universe and anybody utilizing this information for personal gain. The universe has no problem with that, as long as it's also being utilized simultaneously to help other people. So you must follow through on this rule of karma if you expect to continue profiting from this information. And the way that you do that is 5% of the profits from each profitable trade utilizing this information should be donated forward to one of the charities here on the resources tab. Just click here and donate. And 5% of the profit should be donated back to the channel here at one of these links, helping the channel, supporting the channel and saying thank you. It leaves you 90%. Make sure to spend that 90% out of love. As long as you follow those rules, you're an angel investor of the channel. The universe is going to send it back to you tenfold for following through on those rules, my friend. Blessings to all my angel investors. Before we get into the day-by-day chart behavior, I want everybody to understand that not each card's energy is going to line up perfectly with 1 day of time. So you have to give it plus or minus 1 day of wiggle room here or there in some cases. On a bad reading, maybe plus or minus 2 days, but I consider that a bad reading very rare. And in a lot of cases, you won't need the plus and minus. But the most important aspect of the reading to pay attention to is going to be the sequence of chart events as predicted, because no matter if the timing's off by a day here or there, the sequence of events will keep you on track as far as the prediction. All right, so on the first, we have a prominent trough or low. It's either and or on the first second. It's either or first second, or it could be both. So on the first, we have a prominent trough that stands out on a 1 month scale. We establish support with sideways rotation near the cusp of the first second, and it looks like there's this big move higher, bumping along resistance sideways. It looks like we have a drop into what'll act as our lowest low. We have a drop into another trough early in the day on the second, and then added that trough, we have bumping along resistance sideways, breaking through resistance, bumping along resistance sideways. That turns into key rotation along key support on the 5th. A trade opportunity on every single one of these days throughout the first week and a half of February. So I'll talk about those in more detail in the paid version. An important peak around the cusp of the 5th, 6th, where we have a failed attempt to break through key resistance on a multi-day scale. It'll be resistance that technicals lead us to believe we're going to break through. And then instead we break down through key support on a multi-day scale, probably the support that we're rotating along here on the 5th. That decline takes us all the way into a trough midday on the 7th, prominent trough there again on a 1 month scale, and then it rally out of that pretty notably, increasing with momentum moving forward into the 8th. There's a brief peak, there's a prominent peak on the 8th. That's followed by a notable decline through multiple supports, increasing with the momentum moving forward back into a prominent trough on the cusp of the 8th, 9th. And then we have like this pop and drop on the 9th. So we either have a pop and drop on the 9th, or we have a pop on the 9th and a drop over the weekend on the 12th. Into the 12th. We have an important trough early in the day on the 12th, and it's part of a U-shaped dip. So my sense is that probably there's one peak on the 9th, a trough early in the day on the 12th, and then another peak towards the end of the day on the 12th, or maybe it's the 13th. On the 13th, we have a period of sideways rotation establishing support. A prominent move higher sitting out on a 1 day chart or on a multi-day chart, and then sideways rotation at a higher price level, taking us into a peak or crest midday on the 14th. A prominent peak or crest on a 1 month scale, and a notable reversal there. We also see a prominent trough on the 13th and a prominent trough on the 14th. Sideways fluidity, equal amounts of bulls and bears inflow and outflow on the 15th. And another prominent peak on the cusp of the 15th, 16th, or early in the day on the 16th. And it looks like bearish, those sideways fluidity on the 15th turns into bearish price swings on the 16th. There's probably another peak towards the end of the day on the 16th, but there should be a sharp drop there at the end of the day on the 16th into a prominent trough. Before we go any further, let's take a look at December and see how we did thus far. All right, so we had a peak on the 5th, followed by a trough after the 6th, 7th, followed by another peak on the 8th. Boom, that's pretty notable. Into a lowest low on the 11th. It looks like we missed that by a day, 2 days. And then that's followed by a highest high on the 13th. And that ends up being the 5th, 14th, but pretty close. Prominent trough on the 20th, prominent peak on the 19th. This is a really solid reading, guys. And then we have a highest high on the 27th, so that's tomorrow, but it's looking pretty, like it's set up pretty well for that. Oh, we also have like this peak on the 20th that we sell off from pretty notably. Yeah, this is looking really solid. And so like the most important trade would have been like, so on the 11th, I would have opened up a long position at a trough, would have been a little early, probably would have added to that long position there, but on the 13th, I would have looked to close, and it looks like it would have been on the 14th. So it might have gotten a little tricky with this trade. Let's see what else. The Ace of Swords on the 8th, right? So that gives you opportunity to trade both directions around that resistance rate. First to the downside, exit on the 11th, you would have made money. If you open up a short position over the weekend, you would have made a pretty solid gain there. Man, I should have seen this as a trough. because there it is, boom. And then in the midst of closing that long position, right? Even if you did it early and you closed that long, excuse me, in the midst of closing that short position on the 11th, which would have been early, you still would have been able to make money if you opened up a long position based on the Ace of Swords from the 8th, right? You close it on the 14th, open up a long position, you would have been able to close that long position on the 14th for good profit. And then another trade would have been in the midst of that decline, that Ace of Disc decline from the 19th into the trough on the 20th, opening up a long position that you could have closed on the 22nd. That would have made a solid gain. And then it looks like you could have opened up a short position on the 22nd, closed it there. But I would probably be looking for this for this peak or this highest high on the 27th. This is a really solid reading, guys. And this reading was created on, if you're wondering, this reading was created on October 8th, or the December 2023 reading for Tesla was created on October 8th, 2023 at 9:56 p.m. Eastern Time. That's like 2 months in advance, my friends. Really, really solid reading. So let's get back into it. Pretty notable decline from a prominent peak on the 20th to a prominent trough on the 20th. Looks like the prominent trough probably there on the 21st or on the cusp of the 2021st. Out of that decline into the 21st, there's a fast move higher marking the end of the decline towards the end of the day on the 21st, taking us into another peak on the 22nd that we declined down to and through support to meet another support, and then we rotate sideways along that support. A bit of a rally into the 23rd, but that rally is halted by a sharp decline through key support on a multi-day scale, taking us into an important trough towards the end of the day on the 23rd. An important support level on a 1-year chart scale minimum, highlighted on the 26th, about midday. Prominent peak or crest early midday on the 27th in the midst of a period of volatility where we have erratic behavior back and forth through the same price level. There's a crest there that we revisit that was recently a past opportunity. My sense is that it's probably the one from back here on the 21st, 22nd. And then on the 28th, we have a period of sideways rotation that ends with a fast sudden move higher, taking us into another prominent peak towards the end of the day on the 28th. Important trade opportunity there, and a notable decline on the 29th from a prominent peak all the way to a prominent trough on the cusp of the 29th, or possibly the first trading day of the following month. Sneak preview for March, an important low on like a on like a 1-year chart scale, probably an important low there. And that's February for Tesla. Let me know what you think by hitting that like button. As always, make sure to follow that rule of karma. You know where to go. You know what to do. Blessings to all my angel investors. Stay tuned if you got the paid version. All right, guys, so as far as the sequence of events of the 10-year, we're in the midst of these bullish price swings, right? We have this decline, through support, we bounce around it sideways, break down through more support. So that's the Bach card taking us into the 23rd, and then we have these sideways fluctuating, or bullish price swings, which should end in 2020. It looks like this completion card probably actually appears here in 2024 pretty prominently. So I think that rally probably ends in 2024, although probably at the end of the year. But we do have like a highest high thus far here for the year, maybe a significant highest high like period here on the cusp of February, March. And a cross-reading congruency as well with this cash out version of the coin. It's the cross-reading congruency. We also have Ace of Wands energy here at the end of the month. My sense is that we probably have a highest high thus far on the 5th, 6th. It's probably the same high or a higher one here on the 14th. And then we probably see it again on the 15th, 16th. And then we get into even higher, like around the 20th, somewhere between the 20th and the 22nd, or probably the 20th. And then we probably see that same high again midweek, like around like the 27th or the 28th. So highest highs in the last 2 weeks, which is very different than what I saw for the cryptos that I've done thus far. It's kind of like opposite. And lowest lows, we have like a lowest low thus far here on the 1st, 2nd, and or 1st, 2nd. And it looks like it's probably the same low here on the 7th. If we have a lower low than the 7th, it's going to be around the 12th, 13th, probably the 12th and or 13th. But after that, we start going pretty much like a volatile like north movement throughout the rest of the month. And there is some chance of a lowest low at the very, very end of the month after a sharp decline. It's possible we see one again there, or like very beginning of the following month. But I'd have to look at the March reading, which isn't completed yet, to be able to determine that in more detail. But we are bound by the upper end of a range here on a multi-day scale. So my sense is probably the high that we have here from January, this abundance card, we'll probably revisit it here in February. Okay, so this is based on the power card as the theme card. Really, you could probably make a lot of trades in both directions. Like it's not going to like lean to, as far as what's a better trade, bullish or bearish for the month. The trend is more like that's kind of like a sideways energy. So we'll probably find good trades in both directions. Is what I'm trying to say. But the best trade from like a multi-month standpoint, you want to be looking to get into a short position in anticipation of that lowest low there in March. Right, that death card. And I would probably open up a partial short position. All right, so as far as like a multi-month trade, like anticipating that low in March, I want to open up my short position. Definitely want to be opening some short position around the 28th in the midst of that big move higher, ending a period of sideways rotation along key support towards the end of the day. That's where I'd want to open up a short. You could close it the following day at the end of the day or on the cusp of the 29th if you wanted to for a quick short. But this is where I would probably position myself for that, in anticipation of a significant low in March. I'd open up a little bit on the 27th if we revisited the highs, which we very likely will do. And then if we have a higher price level or the same high on the 28th there in that big move higher ending sideways rotation, I would add and complete that short position in anticipation of the low in the following month. Okay, so the low around the 1st, I'd probably wait to revisit it. So we would revisit the lows from around the 1st, 2nd, that price level. We revisit around the 7th and or around the 12th. I would look to open, when we revisit the price level of the lows of the 1st, 2nd, I would look to open up a partial long around the 7th and then another partial, like add to that long on the 12th. If we see lower on the 14th, I would double it up. If we don't see lower, I would leave it alone. And I would look to close that long position on the 14th, midday at a highest high. If that doesn't turn out to be a good opportunity and we end up like with a lower price level and we add to the long position there on the 14th, I would say good likelihood that we could close that long position on the 20th early in the day. And then the decline off of the high early in the day on the 20th offers an opportunity to open up a long position to close on the 27th. There's also a day trade on the 20th early in the day, opening up a short at a peak on a one-day chart that'll stand out before a notable decline. And then I'd close it when we're rotating sideways along key support and there's a sharp drop that stands out in that period of sideways rotation, probably revisiting a support level that was recently a past opportunity there. Some other places where you could probably close that accumulated long position from the first 2 weeks around possibly the 22nd, although there's not really much saying trade there. Probably around the 22nd, probably the 27th, at roughly the same price level as the highs from the 20th or the 22nd. And then last resort, end of the day on the 29th. I wouldn't want to be in a long position past that. As far as overall performance of Tesla versus the S&P 500, Tesla's one of the few Februarys that doesn't have a universal hexagram energy in it. Very interesting. Well, you can see we have highs here at the end. There's some highs here that we dropped from into lows around the end of the second week, beginning of the third, right? And you can see that here in S&P. And then we have highs here and highs here, and it looks like that's a pretty solid pattern. It's probably a pretty sharp drop here based on what I see for the S&P. Probably a pretty sharp drop from the 22nd into the 23rd. But as far as the energies of the theme and crossing card, they're pretty similar in the regard that they're kind of like a sideways energy. Yeah, it looks like the S&P 500 and Tesla do roughly the same performance-wise throughout February. And that's the paid version of Tesla for February 2024. Let me know what you think. Blessings to all my angel investors. Thank you so much for supporting the channel with the paid version. You know where to go. You know what to do. I'll see you guys on the next one.